Hello, welcome back to Truth Talk. It is the day before inauguration. Are we ready? Are we ready for all of the transitions that we're going to have under a new presidency? Not only that, are we even just ready to see an inauguration that looks like it does? Well, joining me today is Bill. Hello, Bill.
Hello. Hello. Hi, Melanie and everybody.
I am so glad you're on today because I have some constitution questions for you and some other things regarding inauguration that I know you have answers. Brandy's not with us today. She had a previous engagement, conflict of scheduling, but she'll be back with us next week. So, Bill, it's you and I
Oh,
and
good.
everyone that's
Sorry to miss
listening.
Brandy though, because she's the pretty much the bright spot of the.
I tell you, I don't know. It's your show and it's Brandy's show. I'm just the
No,
narrator.
I actually
Um,
like the way it's constituted right now. I really enjoy all of us on it. I do. I'm enjoying doing this a lot.
oh, I'm glad. I enjoy it. I love having you on. I love the dynamic between the three of us. I think it worked out really well. That everybody was able to do it and felt like it's something worth doing. Um, But if you're listening, feel free to chat with us, and we can get your comments on screen and you can help guide our conversation. It's kind of a fluid day, Bill, because there's so much going on. We can pick anything to talk about. So,
You are
with
not wrong. There is so much going on right now. It's I didn't starting a year ago. Every prognostication that I've had has been wrong. So do not listen to what I think because I have been wrong because everything I based everything upon is because the normal way of doing things does seem to be what usually happens. Well, that stopped. That stopped at least 8, 9 months ago anyway, maybe longer. The normal way of doing things is not normal anymore. And maybe it will get back to it, but it's certainly not right now.
No, and you're right. The way we think things should go is based on what we have had as a norm all our life. And no one's thinking like that. And the laws aren't acting like that. The politicians aren't acting like they usually
No,
do. On either side of the fence, the medical, nothing is acting in a way that we can predict anything at this time.
no, I read that today, and I don't know how true it is because just because you read something in a paper doesn't mean it's true. Um, I mean, you would hope it would be, but that hasn't been the case. So, but I read that they're going to pull up regular Army troops for the inauguration. That's armed, regular Army troops. Well, that's
Regular.
not legal. That's not legal. It's something called the Posse Comitatus laws, and you can. And since the 1870s, okay, we're talking a long time ago, 1870s, you can't use the United States military on American soil against any American
Right.
person without declaring martial law. It can't be done. You can use National Guard troops without
Right.
declaring national law, but you cannot use regular Army troops, Marines, any of that stuff. And I read that they're pulling up 600,000 or 60,000. I'm sorry, 60,000 troops. Now, once again, that could totally be wrong. And I don't even know why you'd pull in 60,000. I was like, this can't be true. And by the way, it may not be true. But when I read it, I was just thinking, it's not legal for one thing. You want to the people that are against what's going on are like believing there's some sort of a underlying conspiracy to take and become a dictatorship. I don't believe that personally, but there's people that do. Well, if what I read was true, then that's just going to give fuel to that fire. And I don't know. I'm just blown away by people's reactions on everything since COVID hit. It's the whole thing. I don't care what it is. It's opposite, I think, of what should have happened in almost everything.
You know, Bill, my silence is because I'm looking up what you're saying. And yes, there is regular Army troops that will be deployed to the inauguration.
It's not legal.
It says that there's one that just says 5,000 of the troops will be regular Army, and then there is one that says 60,000. So I don't know how much
Yeah.
will be regular Army, but they are showing regular Army troops at the inauguration. And you're right, because from what I know now, I was regular Army. My husband was National Guard. He was stateside. I was not stateside. I was wherever it wasn't in the United States. But he was always a stateside deployment. So
that law came about not long. I mean, it might have been when Ulysses S. Grant was the president. Okay. I mean, if it wasn't him, it was Hayes or somebody back then. It was a long time ago. We're talking 150 years almost. That law has been enacted. No American troops are allowed to do anything on American soil like this. It's against the law. So without declaring martial law, it can all, by declaring martial law, you can, use American troops on American soil. Other than that, you can't, not against American citizens.
There's noise about martial law being declared. Now, we only have 1 day left. I don't see that happening tonight. So I don't think that that's something that is going to be looked at. But let me show you a picture of what Washington, D.C. I'm sure everybody sees this, but this is American soil. This is our capital with armed guardsmen, National Guardsmen, and maybe some regular troops. But I'll tell you what, it just floors me, because these men and women are now having to do something they never thought they'd do. And that is defend on American soil at the Capitol against United States citizens. I don't think they ever really thought it would be something like this when they were in training. That's not something you think you're going to do.
No,
but
and
go ahead.
Once again, if it's just National Guards, it is legal. But if you remember in 2016, in that inauguration, there was a gigantic anti-Trump movement. They were protesting. They were on the mall. They were marching. I remember, what was the girl's name? One of the, I can't remember which one, but one of the stars. She said, Madonna, I'm thinking a lot about blowing up the White House.
Yes,
maybe it wasn't Madonna. I could have got that wrong. I'm not trying to impugn anybody, but I just remember watching this march against the Trump inauguration, and they made a big deal of it. Like, these are the American people speaking out and giving their voices. Okay, fine. I actually agree with that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now it's like, well, you can't have your voice and speak out against this election because we're going to put troops here. They didn't put troops in to stop the marches in 2016, and that's just strange to me. Now, I know if you're on the left, you say, well, look what just happened when they broke into the Capitol. Totally agree with that. Anybody that did that, I'm against what that happened. You should punish that, but you should not punish people that are lawfully protesting something.
And that's what I was going to talk about, because to me, it's not about the Capitol, what happened with the Capitol, because there was only 3 or 4, based on what reports you believe, casualties. And that's a lot of casualties for something that should never have happened.
Never happened. Nothing in me thinks that's good.
No, it doesn't warrant this show of force. I really believe there's enough, like, by the count that I know, it's 26,000 troops are there present. Now, I don't know if more is coming, but that is more. I don't know if our viewers know this. That's more troops than we have in Afghanistan and Iraq combined.
Yeah.
So you're telling me we're more of a threat than Afghanistan and Iraq combined? I don't understand that, but here's what I don't understand, because, like, we're military here, right?
Right.
And you take an oath, and 99% of the people, even if they're going into the military for financial reasons or educational reasons, they believe in what they're standing for, and that is defending our country, defending the Constitution of America. But I want to show this guy's face because I think this is a disgrace to all those men and women who are sitting there camping out, and they were on the floor. Did you see those pictures of our troops on the floor? They were sleeping on the floor for days, Bill. They didn't even give them cots or sleeping bags. They just deployed them and they were on the floor with nothing, no pillow, no blanket, no cot. Now they got cots. They just got them within the last 48 hours. But why? Why are our troops on the floor? This is why. This guy, Congressman Steve Cohen, he is from Tennessee. I'm going to show his face because I want people to know who he is. He literally, now I'm going to give you a quote. No, I'm not going to show his face anymore. I want to talk to you, Bill. He said this. Now, I got a question about this. 25% of National Guardsmen voted for Biden. That leaves 75% in the class that might want to do something, meaning harm at the inauguration. Now, number one, he's also said every white man in America is under suspicion of wanting to be a threat. So the National Guardsmen, now they already took the oath to defend the Constitution in this country. They are going through in order to be stationed at the Capitol, government background checks. They have to take another oath saying that they're going to defend what this presidency is, not the Constitution.
That's weird.
The event. Now,
that's weird.
I don't understand how that's even being possible. They already took an oath. They already trained. They already showed their commitment to this country. Why do you now need to do more background checks because they're white American males? And
not only that, but what a weird statement that is, because a whole bunch of white American males voted for Joe Biden. I mean, that's what, we've talked about this, Melanie, and before in just ourselves, not just on the air, but when you divide people, like I really believe the left divides people. Now, I know that's a divisive statement, and people would say, well, you're dividing people. I can see the point, but I really think the left divides people into categories, and that's what I'm against. I don't consider myself a white male American. I consider myself an American.
Right.
That's it. And I was an Army guy. That's it. I don't consider myself anything else. I don't think this way. And I think differently. I'm a capitalist. I want capitalism to be the rule of the economy. I'm a Christian. I would like people to come to Christ. I'm an American. I love this country. But I don't divide people into black and white and tall and short and blue eyes and brown eyes. And I don't do that. But the left does. And in doing so, you can see they believe it. I'm not saying it's nefarious. They're not, but they really believe it. I think they really go, oh my gosh, there's all these white men here. They're going to do something. Well, that's crazy. There are some crazy people. There are crazy people that are on the conservative side. And some of those broke into the Capitol. I'm totally against what they did. So is every person I've talked to. Not one person that I personally have talked to said, boy, I wish I was there doing that. No, they were like, what were they thinking? Who started this stupid thing? And so the reason I say that is because if you divide people, then you start saying, well, that's a suspicious person because he's a white male. Or now you've made all these guys feel like they're being, looked upon suspiciously. So they don't like you. And that's the problem. When that happens, Satan wins, because Satan's the one that divides people and makes you say, you don't like those people. They're not tall as you are. You don't like those people. They're too heavy. You don't like those people. They're too skinny. You don't like those people. They got red hair. That is just bad. But we're doing that right now.
And not only that, here's my question. Biden won the presidency by the highest number of votes, right? Then how are they saying only 25% of the, what did I say, 26,000 armed troops voted for Biden. 75% of 26,000 National Guardsmen voted for someone else. They didn't say who. They just said in a class that didn't vote for them. So that puts that whole number into question for me. Like, why would Congressmen go and even say that 75% voted for someone other than?
It is true that most military people vote conservative, most cops vote conservative, most firemen vote conservative. That's true. I don't think
Okay.
anybody denies that. It's also true most educators and most entertainers vote
Vote.
left. And I think
Yes.
that's pretty evident too. Now, that's not 100% of anybody, but the majority of people that are going to wear the uniform of the United States military, a fireman, a cop, all those people that pretty much put their lives on the line every day, they're going to be more conservative people politically. The ones on the other side, they're going to be more liberal, generally speaking. And it's only generally, but it's consistent. And by the way, it's been consistent. I'm 59. I just turned 59 last week. And I know, I remember when my dad turned 60, it shocked me. I'm a year away from being shocked from my kids saying, dang, Dad, you're old. But the reality is in my lifetime, it's been this way. This is not new. This is not a new thing. This is a consistency. So it's probably true that the majority of the National Guardsmen voted for Trump. That's probably true. But that doesn't mean anything. I myself, as a United States Army person, would defend Joe Biden with my
Yes.
life and Kamala Harris with my life. I'm a cop right now still. I'm still a cop. I would defend them with my life. No one would be allowed to harm them without getting through me if I was there. And because that's my oath and that's my duty to the United States, not my personal pet peeve or anything like that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. I can't believe they're making them take another oath.
Well,
And
I don't know if
kind
it's
of
that
weird.
oath,
That's
but
kind of weird.
it is a screening where they have to declare their allegiance. That's the word they use,
What?
allegiance
To
to
what?
to this presidency,
Yeah, that's
to
not
the
something you
incoming
have to do.
presidency.
I
And
wouldn't
that
I wouldn't do that. And
I,
because if I wouldn't do it for Trump either, I would be like, I'm not
no,
swearing my allegiance
because
to a
we,
presidency.
and this is the thing. The problem with the riot was those people were rioting, for some people in the mind, that they were writing for Trump, which is an independent person.
Yeah.
Congressman Booker, this gentleman here, he was one of the first people to come out and say the problem with the rioting is that it was for a person. You don't riot for a person. So we can't
Yeah.
say do an allegiance for another person. Like, they're both wrong. We have to get back to, this is the United States of America.
Right.
And
Yes.
we have a constitution, we have laws to uphold, but we are United States of America. We're a country. We're not so categorically put into different, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. And I think it's horrendous. I think it's an insult to our National Guardsmen and an insult to white men, to say you're all looked at as someone who could potentially want to harm actual, like, the president.
Yeah. Who happens to be a white male.
It has to be a white male, only because the majority
I
of the
don't,
people at the riot were white male. I do want to say this: the chat is not working. So if you are trying to chat, it is not
oh,
working.
okay.
Yeah, do you see it working on your screen?
No.
Okay, so if you are wanting to chat, just leave a message on the Facebook or something, and we'll answer that after the show. I'm sorry, it's just not, the server's not working for that.
One of the things too, Melanie, that I think is bothers people that are not conspiratorialists, because I'm not one. But this is what bothers an average human being on either side when they see hypocrisy. Nobody likes it. And when Senator Booker was, Cory Booker was talking about them coming to the Capitol to argue against Kavanaugh, he invited people who were violent, who were angry, into the chambers yell, scream. He even told people, get up in people's faces. He said these words, go to Capitol Hill, get in the faces of those Republicans, yell and scream at them right here in the Capitol. Get inside here, go inside and yell at them. Okay. He said that himself.
Mm-mm.
Now, when his side has won the presidency and going to be inaugurated, I said that when the electors speak, it's done. And I've said that
Yes.
the whole time. And when now he's saying, oh my gosh, you guys, you're not very patriotic if you stand against your leaders. You're the
Right.
same guy that just a few months ago was saying, get in the leader's face and scream at him. It's your American duty. That's hypocrisy. You say, do it against my opponent, but don't do it to me because then you're a bad person. That's hypocrisy because you shouldn't do it either way. You shouldn't have done what they did breaking into the Capitol. I have no sympathy for those people. They should be prosecuted. They should never have done that. But the other people shouldn't have gone to people eating food and doing this and sitting out front of their houses and playing loud music and screaming and threatening them, which they did do. And people like Cory Booker and a few other Congress people in Congress said, yes, go do it, when it was the other side. And I'm against that on either side. You should never do either way. I would never say go in front of his house or AOC's house or anybody that I might disagree with politically and scream and holler at them. Never. I would throw you in jail for trying to bother these people if it was up to me, because there are representatives duly elected. That is not seeming to come from both sides. It's only one-sided right now, and that bothers people.
Yeah, it does. How do you think we can even get to the point where we can see Americans as Americans again and not Democrats or Republicans, not Trumpers or Bidens? Because all I see right now is the complete overthrow of anyone who thinks differently.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't, and before today, you and I really have never shared what we think about Republican, Democrat, Biden, or Trump. We've kind of kept really neutral. But for me, it's hard for me to keep neutral when you have them interrogating our troops that already took an oath, a vow, and an oath to protect the United States government and the United States of America altogether and uphold the Constitution. I have a problem with that. And it doesn't matter if it was the Republicans doing it, I would have a problem with that.
Yeah. That's my point, Melanie. We're consistent in our position. You and I have been friends a long time, and we're consistent on our positions, even the positions you and I might disagree on. You're consistent with yours, and I'm consistent with mine. It doesn't change because now I've got to get on this side. Now I'm over here because, it helps us politically. I'm against that. Right is right.
Let me ask you this.
That's it.
Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to go a little bit to the beginning. What did the Republicans do by legal legislation or constitution wrong in objecting to the vote? Because from what I understand, and I know limited knowledge, but what I understand is there is a constitutional avenue to where they can say, hey, I object, and then it gets looked into. Like, right. What did they do to cause all of this downfall? Because you got defunding the Republicans, you got shutting down the Republicans' speech, their social media. Not only that, you got even more stuff coming if they have their way. But it all starts because they didn't want to just say, yeah, we lost, let's go forward with Biden. But they didn't do that with Trump either. No. Trump's whole presidency was fueled with Russian gate, whatever they called it. It was fueled one after the other, which you didn't earn the presidency. But here, we can't do that.
Yeah, the opposition to Trump began before the inauguration, and there was people that were vocal about it. We're opposing him, and they did. Didn't matter what he did. He could remember whenever that guy from North Korea was causing all the problems, and he made fun of him. And so they said, "Oh, you're going to get us in World War III. You know, you're terrible." And then he got him on his side, and then he said, "Well, we're getting along. We're talking. We're getting along." And then they were like, "Oh, you're calling up the dictators." I'm like, you can't win if whatever you do is not good. And that was what it was. Now, that's politics. I get it. In 2000, when Bush won, the Democrats never accepted it for 4 years. They fought. They even did it legally. They tried to fight it in the courts. It went up to the Supreme Court. They went further against Bush than this went against Biden. Okay. And that's the way it was. And nobody questioned it. This is totally different. That's what I said at the beginning. There's something different going on. And then right now, since COVID, there's something different going on than in my personal experiences of life and studying things and living through it and paying a lot of attention. But I will say this, and it's a theory, and it's only a theory. I think it's very spiritual. I think that there's a reality, and I'm not going to say that it's like the judgment of God, because I'm not a prophet, but I am going to say that I believe that there's something spiritual going on, because it doesn't seem to be explained through natural experiences. And so if that's true, then I'm curious to see how this is all going to work out, because I'm American. I'm a flag waving American, but I'm a Christian before I'm anything else. And Jesus is not a Republican or a Democrat. He is way beyond that. And so it isn't that God is on the Republican or the Democrat side. That's not it. Abraham Lincoln actually said he didn't care if God was on the side of the North. He cared if the North was on the side of God. And that was a really profound statement. That was. And that's what a position I want to take. So I'm paying attention, wondering what God's doing, because I cannot for the life of me believe this is all happenstance.
No.
It's too weird to just be life as normal. And so I think that the hand of God is happening, whether that's going to drive us to our knees and repentance as a nation. And then we get, what is it, First or Second Chronicles 7:14 or whatever, if my people will bow themselves and repent and humble themselves, then he'll heal the land. Or whether it's Sodom and Gomorrah going to get judged, and it didn't work out well for them, and it won't work out well for us. Thank you for doing that, Second Chronicles 7.
You know, I agree with you, because it's not just COVID and politics. As I talk to people I know and care about, everybody's life is upside down. What used to be normal is now not normal. But it's not just things going weird. It's the speech is different. Like, you can't say anything that seems right. It's like there's a shift in the narrative of life, and it's not. It's just like, you hear it, and it makes no sense, but everybody around you agrees with it. And I'm like, what?
Or if they don't, they're afraid to speak up, because right now there was people that went to that protest, I guess, the riot that turned into a riot, but they went there to protest. They weren't meaning to riot. They didn't riot. They were involved with something that got out of control, and a lot of people left. They just said, I'm not doing this. And I have read story after story of people losing their jobs at major corporations.
Because they were there.
Because they were there. They didn't break into anything. They didn't get arrested. They didn't do anything. When it got bad, they left, and they still have been fired. That didn't happen on the left. That didn't happen on the left when people were, doing things in Seattle and Portland. I didn't hear of anybody calling for these people's heads or anything. And that's weird. So now you're silencing people because of
listen, check this out. I don't want you to go any further, because there was this gentleman, and I didn't capture all the information. It was like 2 a.m. But the FBI was at his house, like carloads, FBI on a bullhorn for this guy who was there. He was there. That's it. The facial recognition caught up with him, and he was there. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't go inside the Capitol. He was in the outside of the Capitol, but he was not up front. He was not for. He was not on the property. He was outside the gate. He got arrested, full force of the
For what?
FBI at his house. Because if you were there, you are part of the riot. And that's not
But
the way
that's
it's
not
supposed to
true.
be. But you mentioned like all the other riots and protests with all the Black Lives Matter and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, Kamala Harris, she put up a GoFundMe to help the people who were the rioters.
Yeah.
And now the no one can riot without the FBI coming after you. I not riot, protest,
Yeah.
protest.
Because I'm not for
It's just
rioting, and I am
backwards to
not.
me.
Neither of us are for that. I mean, what
No,
happened was wrong, and see that's just it. I'm so consistent. And bothers so many people I know because they're some of the people that I was putting down the Portland stuff and saying you can't burn your city like this. Why aren't they doing something? They're going, well, now what do you think? I said arrest them. That's
yeah,
what I think. Anybody broke in the Capitol, but that's a big difference between somebody sitting back here protesting.
yes,
And you should always have the right to protest. So we will see. You know, AOC actually said, and she did say this. This was, of course, she says stuff all the time that
yes, she does.
I don't know if she even thinks before she talks. But she said she wanted to get some legislation to rein in the media. Okay, 90% of all media is pro AOC. I mean, they're on the left side. And she's like, we need to rein in the media. And I'm like, well, one, you can't do that. It's in the Constitution that you don't get to rein in the media.
Well,
And number two, what are you talking about? They're on your side. So once again, I I don't think she knew what she was talking about. So I don't want to go too far with that. But
well,
I was like,
I want to segue into that because here's this guy. I want to show you his face. His name is Alex Stamos. He's the director, the Stanford Internet Observatory. All right. And I want to tell you some of his quotes. I want to put the quotes on the screen. Now, this, when she says silence the media, she's not talking about the media that agrees with her. This is
correct.
what
I'm not sure.
Alex Stamos says. He says this, Bill. Hold on, let's get rid of his face. He said this on CNN. Turn down the ability for conservative influence to get their message to the viewers. Now, what he was talking about is any YouTube influencer, Instagram, any social media platform influencer that is conservative, has a conservative viewpoint, that is pro-Trump, that anything that's not the narrative of the new presidency should be turned down. They should not be allowed to get their message to their viewers. And they said, well, how is that possible? And he said this: they should be allowed freedom of speech, but not sure Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and such should be bringing them into their homes.
Okay, so now if I would be fine with him saying that if he said that about Black Lives Matter and Antifa and the Muslim Brotherhood and any other
everybody that is against another category of people.
You believe that? He would not believe
every
that.
single body.
He wouldn't be for that. Yeah, if I said, why don't we shut down all Antifa social media and Muslim Brotherhood and all these other things, let's shut them all down. We will turn them down. We will not allow them on the social media. I would be called a bigot, every word and said how un-American I am. But whenever he says it, CNN says, okay, you know that actually, who was it? Was it? Oh my gosh, they were reporting on a guy that used to work at PBS, and he said, I can't remember his name, but he actually said Trump's supporters should have their children taken away and put in education camps. Now, he no longer works at PBS, and I don't think it was because he said that, but he's working somewhere else. But he even said this, he goes, they should be made to watch PBS all day.
Wow.
Your children need to be taken from you. Well, no, I didn't see him say it. I read it. It was on the news, though, and I read it. It was on CNN, and it wasn't in a negative light. It wasn't like, who would say such thing? He's like, well, here's a thought that some people might have, and that kind of stuff. But they actually said their children should be taken from them If I saw him say it, it is a possibility that he was just being tongue in cheek and making a joke. It is possible, and I'll give that
But is that
possibility
even
because I did
something
think
to
that.
joke about? Like,
But you couldn't get away with it the other way around, even as a joke.
no,
You know,
no, against any other section of society. You
no,
know, conservative people have really come under attack, and you can't have your viewpoint where. But this is the thing, freedom, I don't think anybody realizes they can, once you start shutting down freedom of speech, it's just going to trickle, it's going
right.
to keep trickling and trickling. And yes, the riot, the ones who rioted, they atrocious, but does it demand that everyone who thinks like those who rioted is now an enemy of the state?
Which, by the
Because
way, was
that's
a
how they're
small amount
treated.
of people. That's a small amount of people that
Yes.
did that. And it was a large amount of liberals that took over a whole section of a city in Seattle. So that was a large amount of people. Do we want
Mhm.
to? I don't want to shut down all liberal thought. I wouldn't shut down CNN. I wouldn't shut down the news media at MSNBC. If I had the authority to, I would say, no, they have their right to say whatever they want to say. And that isn't going both ways. And see, that's where I don't know how this is going to work out, but half the country at least votes one way or the other. So you can't really keep people down too long. You can't. They're not going to let you. And I don't mean violence, but I mean, like, look, we're just going to start our own programs. Now, I know that one conservative Twitter, whatever that
Parlor.
is.
Parlor.
Yeah, I don't do that, so I'm afraid I'm ignorant of it. But I know he's up and running again, I guess. And but how in the world would anybody on the left put up with that? Being how
Being
would you on
banned.
the left put up with shutting down somebody because you didn't agree with their message? That is abhorrent. My dad, when I was a kid, little kid, and I'm old enough to remember this, the hippies were burning flags in the street. And I was a little boy, little tiny kid, and grammar school. And I got mad. And I said something like, those people should go to jail, because I'm a little kid and I can't really think too much but black and white. And that's understandable for a little kid. But my dad, who was trying to teach me something, said the most profound thing, which was no, they have the right to say what they want. I can't stand, he was a World War II veteran. I can't stand anything these people are talking about. But they have the right to say it, and this is why it's so important. The freedom of speech is not so somebody gets the right to agree with you. The freedom of speech is so that other, and he said a bad word, because I remember it really well. So that other guy has the right to say whatever he wants, because if it's just somebody who agrees with you, it's not freedom of speech. And I never forgot that. Even though I was only about 8 years old, I agree with that statement to this day. 50 years later, I'm in complete agreement with Booker and AOC have the right to say what they want, but
Yes.
so does Trump, and so does, I'm just think Rush Limbaugh. I don't care. I don't care who you are, because it doesn't matter who you are. It matters that you're a human being, you're an American citizen, and you should not, the weight of the government shouldn't come down against you. If that
No.
starts happening, you're going to see a big rebellion, because half the people are always on one side or the other. It's still half the people.
Yeah. We can see that even with the COVID restrictions. I know I get people all the time calling me, oh, you're in California, you must have nothing open, everything's. No, people aren't listening to it anymore. They
No, they're
did
not.
for 10 months. But after that, it was like once it showed that the government wasn't listening to it and applying the same restrictions, and the entertainment business wasn't listening to it, the people in my communities that I visit and do business with, they're like, you know what, we're just doing business because we're done with it. We're
Yeah.
done. And so they're gonna like they let Parler get closed down, but then people came and rallied. They got put back up. This loss of freedom of speech is going to backfire. But what's it going to take? Because I don't care what side. Why are you on a side? You shouldn't be honest. Well, all
Correct.
Trumpers should be silenced. Why are you saying that? Because you're next. And I don't think people understand that. It's the politicians, that 1% of people who run this country. They're safe. Everybody else is not. These laws and changes will trickle down to both sides of the fence sooner or later.
It's a really old saying. I mean, and I didn't come up with it. My gosh, I heard it as a kid on TV, but I've heard it many times. Well, and it was talking about the Nazis. They came for the people who had mental health problems, but I didn't speak up because I didn't have mental health problems. Then they came for the gypsies, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a gypsy. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I'm not Jewish. Then they came for me, and nobody spoke up for me. What is wrong with this world? And that's very good. Everyone should think that way, not left or right. Humans, this experiment of freedom that we've had in this country for the last couple hundred years, a little more, has been a minor blip on the scene of humanity. Almost every human that's ever lived has lived under a tyrannical ruler. Almost everybody. We have had this nice little thing called freedom, liberty, that we got. We started, our forefathers started. It's spread around to some places in the world. It's not everywhere, but it looks like it's imploding by their own people. Our own people are saying, take away my freedoms. And it doesn't make any sense to me. That's why I say, I wonder how much of this is God. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm not pretending to speak for the Lord. But if this is a judgment of God, we may be doing this to ourselves, Melanie. We may be harming our own future with our head in the sand, because we think all we're doing is shutting down the people who disagree with us. But that's not true. You're giving power to people who will shut you down as soon as you disagree with them.
Exactly. Exactly. And I do think, I love that. I love that. I don't know what you would call that saying, that story about they came for one, because they're coming, and they're coming, and they're coming, and they're coming with an agenda. A rollout is coming with this transition of power. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what Biden's presidency is going to look at in depth. I'm going to look at that for next week's show. We're going to look at the entire, what we know about what's going to happen in our country, whether you agree with it or not. What's Biden's presidency look like? What's on his agenda? And next week, we're going to talk about that in detail. But my thing is this: I do believe with you that this is bigger than just the right and the left. It's so much bigger than that. This country has been the freest country, the one where anyone can dream and become what they have in their dream. If they work hard, maintain their integrity, and stay focused on it, you can actually achieve anything. Yes. And it's been proven again and again, whether you come up in an abused home, whether you come up on the street, you can still make it. If you just have that fortitude and vision, you can do it here in America. We're seeing a shift where that's not going to be possible pretty soon. It's already started with the COVID restrictions and shutdowns, but it's going to be even more if we don't start standing up for the Constitution of this country, because it's a great country. But I think God is showing something. He is showing who we are as his church. He is showing us who we are as Americans, as citizens. And I think it's, there is a time over and over and over again in the Bible where God's people had to stand up for what was right, had to take a stand. Now, I'm not talking about violence or anything. It's an individual stand. I have to know what I'm willing to, before God, what he wants me to do. And everyone needs to just look at themselves, go to God and say, what is my role in this? What's my response in this? Because, Bill, your response is so much different than mine, and no one's going to have the same response. God's going to say, okay, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. And if we all do that, then maybe answers will start coming,
Well, and once again, if you're on the other side politically than the guy I voted for, and once again, I've never made it. You're right. We've never made a big deal of that. And I'm not wanting to do that today either. but it's pretty obvious that, if you know me, that I'm probably going to vote for the more conservative candidate. I'm not a Trump lover. I'm not any human lover. The last president I loved was
He
Ronald
wasn't.
Reagan.
Yes.
Ronald Reagan. I loved the man. I loved him. I didn't love any president since then. I didn't love either of the Bushes. I liked them just fine. I think I probably would have liked Bill Clinton. Everybody seemed to like Bill Clinton, but I didn't agree with his politics. That, and Barack Obama, same thing. Everybody seems to like the guy. I would like to. He's an athlete. I probably would have grown up with him and played some sports. I mean, that's fine. I didn't like necessarily the politics. Okay. But I don't love any of those men. I don't know those men. They're not my friend. And I didn't know Ronald Reagan either, but I had a love for him. There's no other person that I'm like that tied into. My view is more political: capitalism, individual freedom, rights and responsibilities. That's the big thing for me. It has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat or white or black or any of that stuff. It has to do with one thing and one thing only, and that is give me liberty or give me death. And
Yeah.
that's a big deal. That is a big deal. And I'm telling you, you don't want to lose liberty, because it's been a very small amount of time that any humans have had liberty. And it also was an old saying that freedom isn't free and every generation has to fight for it. I used to hear that in
Yes.
old TV shows and movies or whatever. Freedom is not free.
No.
And most people have lived as some sort of a servant to something else. And by the way, one of the reasons I'm not on the side of the left is historically now the side of the left under, especially far left. I'm talking far left now, not even socialists, but full on communists and full on very left leaning socialists. The government, central government, is in charge of everything: the finances, your medicine, your food. They give you your land, they give you your stuff, but you are their servant. And that's how almost every person has lived throughout time until the 1700s, in this experiment called freedom and liberty, where we said, no, it may not work out better for every human, but anybody willing to put in the effort is going to do much better under freedom. And we have. And I want to live like that. And I want I'm 59, as I said. I don't have that much longer on this earth, but my grandchildren sure do. And I want them to have that same freedom I had. I don't know if they're going to have it. They might. I'm not an over alarmist. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. But if the left completely gets in charge, where they tell you what you can drive, what you can eat, what you can wear, where you can vote, who you can vote for. It's funny. You might remember this, but when communism was in charge in Russia, they had a 90-something% turnout for all votes.
Yes, because they were
ordered
to vote for. Yes.
There was one person to vote for, and you were ordered to go vote. So they had a higher percentage of their population voting, and they used to brag about that. But they only had one guy to vote for. I don't want that here.
This is what it looks like to me. It's like we're going in that direction where the candidate that they want has to win, or everything else is going to get shut down. And that's not democracy. That's not what we're supposed to be about. I don't know what the generations are going to be coming up and what they're going to live like. It's already, I see 5-year-olds and 3-year-olds playing with a mask on and being afraid of other people. I was in line at where were we? I was at Walmart or Bed Bath and Body somewhere, and I was in a line. Bed Bath and Body. I was in a line, and there was this little kid playing, like 5, 6 years old, cute as a button, wearing a mask, and I was looking and thought, that child thinks that's normal. Like that child really thought it wasn't tugging at it, wasn't like, why do I have it? Just okay. But then someone walked close and stood to ask a question. Well, that child ran. She was afraid of another human being close to her. And I thought,
that's rough.
That is a psychological change in our children that will be carried through the generation, because that's what we've already done. That's a change for our society, that if we don't do something about that, what are they going to do? What's society going to look like when that 5-year-old is 25?
Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be rough on them. especially if
That's
they're really afraid of people like that. Maybe they'll just rebel like a normal young person against how they were raised. Um, I had a friend last night. We were talking. He's my age, good friend. Not a liberal, not one, but he was castigating people who travel. That was me. I was traveling recently. He's like, and he actually said this. He's like, look, you know how a lot of the Native Americans got wiped out through diseases. Well, you're trying to wipe out people if you go traveling. And I go, well, no. What I'm doing, and I was kind of being tongue in cheek because he's a very good friend of mine. I go, what I'm doing is I'm trying to build up everybody's immunity so we don't turn out like the Native Americans. We all got to get a little thicker, man. We're not going to get any viruses, and then somebody's going to show up and everybody's going to die. We have to have some immunities here. Now, I was being a little flippant with him, and he understood it, and we were having fun. But I couldn't probably say that on ABC because people would be like, look, you're trying to kill people. No one's trying to kill anybody. Okay, that's not true. There are a very small percentage of people in this world that like killing people. I'm a cop. I happen to know somebody who does. It's such a small amount of people. Almost no one wants to do that. Almost no, 99.9999% of the population does not want to kill anybody on the left or the right. Okay, there's nothing to do with it. Just humans don't like doing that. So nobody's trying to do that. So to look at somebody who I wore a mask everywhere I went, but I went to 3 different states. To look at somebody and say, you went to 3 different states during the pandemic? Oh my gosh, are you trying to kill everybody? No, that's foolishness. It's beyond foolishness to even think such a thing. But it is what we have, and that fear. And by the way, this guy's a healthy guy. And I'm like, well, we're not young people, but we're not old people yet. And so it was like, look, I don't know what you're talking about. We're not going to die if we get this. Oh, by the way, some of my own family has had it and gotten through it. I have a daughter, 2 nephews. They're already gone through it. They're on the other side, but they were young, healthy people. Okay. So you don't expect anything bad to happen to them. And it didn't. And it did not. And they were responsible when they had it. They didn't go out in public while they had it. And that was good. I wouldn't tell anybody to do that. But we've overreacted to where now we're scaring 5-year-olds into thinking because they talk to somebody, they're going to get a disease. That's just not true.
It was heartbreaking to me. But, it's winding down. I want to share the scripture, 2 scriptures, actually. This one, I love this one. It says, I will sing praises to my God while I have my being. Put not your trust in princes and mortal men who cannot save. And I love the fact that it says, while I have my being, because there's so many things coming against our own mental state, our own physical safety, the way our life is going to be. We need to sing praises to God now while we can, and realize, and I love this one here, Psalm 118, verse 9, it's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. We are putting in this country our confidence in a political party, in a man. And we have to stop that. We have to say, you know what? Let's go back to the basics. I love what you said. First, I'm a Christian. What does God say we are to do and we are to be, how we are to live our life, how we are to interact with one another? Second, we're an American. What does the Constitution, what are the laws of America? The Bible says to obey the laws of the land. We need to have those 2 concepts back as our lead, not as those 2 concepts, American and Christian. Well, you're the enemy. We're not the enemy. And we got to make sure that in our circle with our people, we don't act like the enemy. It's so easy to get caught up in a battle, in a fight over it. Back it up. It's not our fight. It's not our fight.
So far, Melanie, I want to chime in on that. If you are a person that is going to attack somebody during the inauguration because it's not your guy, you are an enemy to the United States of America.
Yes, you are.
You're not. Now that would be easy for me to say when my guy won, right? No, I'm saying it no matter who wins. you're not allowed to do that. Not as me as a soldier or me as a cop. You're not allowed to do that, and I won't let you do it. And of course, I'm not there, and I can't do anything specifically about that. But if I was, I would stop with everything I could, that because you're an enemy by doing that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't campaign against the people you disagree with, vote against the people you disagree with, protest against people you disagree with. You can do all those things, but don't become an enemy to this great land by tearing it down. Because I'm going to tell you, if you do, you're just going to make your side look even worse, and you're going to destroy what you believe in. I said that last week. If I was in charge of some sort of that protest, which I wasn't, and I made that very clear that I was traveling, but not to Washington, D.C. And if I was there and I was in a speaking role, I would make sure everybody knew that if anybody does what they did, you just messed up everything you believe in. Yes. You just gave your enemy so much fodder to destroy you with. That was stupid.
And it's proof. Look what happened to our country since then.
Yeah.
You know, if that never happened, if those people didn't take matters in their own hand and decide to be a loud, obnoxious group of people and become violent, we would not have our inauguration look like this. We would not have the presence of military on American soil like we're some other country that is a communist party. That doesn't even make any sense to me how we got here. So tomorrow's inauguration.
Nobody's going to be marching there's nobody marching tomorrow like there were against Trump. They're not going to be allowed to. Now, they were allowed to march against Trump. Nobody stopped them. They could say whatever they wanted. That's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to be allowed. By the way, I wouldn't go to a thing in Washington right now. I just wouldn't go. I'm not going to deal with it. But if you want to be brave and go there and give your opinion, you should have the right. You should absolutely have the right to give your opinion. But it doesn't look like it's going to be allowed tomorrow. Doesn't look like it. I'm not going though.
Don't go. Listen, all the capitals
right in California. Doggone it.
All the capitals across the country have had, well, not all of them, but a lot of them have had some kind of protest or show up of people, you know, speaking their mind against what they see as loss of freedom. But, you know, we are urging you to peacefully state what you believe, peacefully protest if that is an option, that it will not get hijacked by someone who wants to make it into a riot.
I actually think
and if you see trouble, stay away from it.
Yeah.
Just stay away from it.
I really believe that the people that, there may be some people on the conservative side that will be like, yeah, it'd be great if we, you know, rioted in the streets again. Okay. There probably are some people that think that way, but you know who really wants the conservatives to go riot? The left. They really want you to do it because it's just going to mean that they win. And that's just the truth. Actually, I thought that when they were doing it in Seattle and Portland, I'm like, what is wrong with the left's leadership? They need to get a handle on this. They're going to make themselves look bad. But that was my thought back then, and I still think the same way. It looks terrible. Makes your side look terrible to do such.
It does. You know, don't fuel the fire. Don't give them what they want. Stay at home. Let the process be the process. Look, tomorrow's inauguration day. We have a new president. We have a new vice president.
Biden is now the president of the United States. Nothing we can do individually is going to change that.
You respect the office of the presidency. Period.
I do. And pray for him. My wife and I are praying for Joe Biden right now for his health and his mental capacity, his physical capacity. No one harms him, that he gets his 4 years. I don't want him in there for 8. I'm not going to lie. I don't. But, well, he might change my mind. Maybe he's going to be a great president. Right now, I don't probably want him for 4 years. But I want him there for 4 years because he got elected, and I'm praying for him the whole time.
Yes, and for Kamala Harris for vice president.
Of course. I don't want anything bad to happen either.
We have to. If we don't pray, and for the Senate and the Congress, we have to pray for our leaders, whether we wanted them there or not. They're there now. It's our duty before God to pray for them, to pray God's will to be going through them for the good of our country, for the good of every American. and every person in this land. And well, Bill, that's the end of our show. We have to go. I love conversating with you. I really do. Brandy, you missed. If you watch this, you were very missed, but it was a good conversation. And I do apologize again for those who wanted to chat that I could not see your chats today. We will do this again next week, and it will be post on inauguration. So join us and see where we're going to talk about what happened tomorrow. Hopefully we don't have much to talk about. Hopefully it's just peaceful and nothing happened. But then we'll dive deep into the presidency of Joe Biden and what he plans to unfold. Thank you for joining us. See you next week at Truth Talk.